Okay, so this is what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to give a pretty brief overview of the latest version of the Google Maps API and just maps in general. I'm going to talk a lot about Google Fusion tables. And I'm going to talk a bit about styled maps, and then Jarda is going to talk about the new features in Google Streetview and how to do really cool things. So that's the basics. I am fine with people interrupting to ask questions. Don't shout it out, but raise your hand and I'll call on you. Because if you shout it out, then that's rude. Yeah, please, it doesn't break my flow too much to answer questions. If I need to ignore you, I'll just keep going. Okay, so this slide is general overview of the Google Geo APIs, and I keep saying I need to add in an image here. There's actually one additional one that I should put in, which is Google Latitude. So you can see that the Google Maps API it's a big family of APIs. Now the big one is the Google Maps API for JavaScript, and the latest version of that is version 3, which everybody is now converting to. Also, there's version 2, which everybody got used to. How many of you have developed using the Maps API before? Good, I like to see that. See, in Moscow, I had simultaneous translation. So I would ask that question, 3 people would raise their hands, I'd look out and I'd think, what? And then everybody would raise their hand, because the translation delay. So I'm glad here people understand, or they just join in when I say raise your hand. So a lot of people don't know we also have the Maps API for Flash. So if you're a Flash developer, we have that, and it's got some cool features that nothing else does, like perspective view, and it's in Flash. Then we also have the Static Maps API, which is basically an image server, right? And this is great for non-JavaScript capable browsers, because most people in the world have one of these. Actually, most people have a dumb phone or a feature phone, not a smartphone, and it doesn't have a JavaScript capable browser like this does. So for mobile devices and also just high performance sites, we have the Static Maps API. We have the Fusion Tables API, we have Ajax Search, we've got Ruby, we've got Latitude, which I didn't mention, and then also a whole host of other services which have location in them, and the data services. But this is the core. This is what Geo is, right? Google Maps API launched 5 years ago. It's actually only been 5 years that you can easily put maps on the web. Before that, you had to use really expensive, high-end software, very difficult to use, very powerful software, GIS software. But when we launched the Google Maps API, because a bunch of developers came to us and said, hey, we saw maps.google.com, and we kind of hacked it. And we did all this really cool stuff, and we had this choice. We could sue them, or we could hire some of them. And so we hired Paul Rademacher, who started housingmaps.com. And because we didn't have any idea, we just thought we were putting maps on the web. Here's a map. People want to know how to get places. But people started doing amazing things, and there are now 350,000 websites with the Google Maps API on them around the world. And they are doing incredibly interesting things that we never would have gotten around to doing. Many times never even would have thought to do. And it is now the largest API platform of any kind in the world. Okay, so this is why it's so easy. This is to put a map on your website, this is all it takes. Now, if you're not a programmer, if you don't know HTML or JavaScript, this is actually a little daunting. But this, to a programmer, is very simple. Cut, paste, and make tweaks. And you have a map on your website. It's so cool. I mean, it's not like Android where it's like, okay, download the SDK, blah, 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 do all this other stuff. This is all you have to do. Not that Android's bad. Okay, how many of you like keys on the Google Maps API? Version 2, the key, the developer key. No, you're lying. You don't like, you like the key? Yeah, all right. Get out. Get out. So the latest version of the Maps API removed developer keys because, well, you all hated them, and they were really basically no use to us. So we no longer have developer keys. So yay. The volume of posts on the Maps API forum dropped significantly after we did that, except people kept trying to use keys. Okay, so we designed it for performance and for mobile, which really means the same thing. So we really designed it to work on iPhone and Android browsers, but as well as desktop. So it loads fast, 3 times faster on a mobile device than it does on your desktop. We did it by totally refactoring the code using a model view controller architecture, which we exposed to you, so you can build MVC objects. It's all HTML and JavaScript, no Flash, which means it works Streetview now only in HTML and JavaScript, which means it works on an iPhone or an iPad, works on places where where Flash isn't. We just added styled maps, so you can change the colors, the color scheme of the maps. I'll talk more about that later. It's got all the traditional Maps API features. Well, they're traditional because we started them, right? You can put a marker, you can put a polygon, you can put driving directions, you can geocode addresses, all these interesting things. And we've got elevation and fusion tables integration, so you can check the elevation of a different location and you can easily add a fusion tables layer. So all of this is to say, there's tons of great features. This is just a very small list of things that I think you should remember. But there's a lot of great stuff in the Maps API. Okay, so I'm done with that. That's just the overview, because by the time you get here to Developer Day, most people know what the Maps API is, right? It's not what you come here for. You want to learn about stuff you probably haven't heard about before. Now, how many of you have used fusion tables before? Okay, so that's more what I expect. So we launched, a year ago, we launched Fusion Tables, quote, a modern data management web application. Yeah, you're not supposed to read your slides. Basically, it's a way for you to upload data to the web, with one step, visualize it, with one step, share it, with one step, have a map, with one step, or a couple of steps, make highly customized visualizations. We got it because this page, this is actually difficult for people, right? Not probably for any of you, but for a lot of people, that's difficult. So here's some of the features. And I'm going to mostly do demos. I've got slides in here in case the internet doesn't work, but which we had a little trouble with today. But you can do things like you can upload a 100 megabyte file. So you have a table of data that's 100 megabytes. Now you try and do that with Google Spreadsheets. You can't do that, right? As I said before, easy visualization, easy mapping, customizing of all the features, the shapes, the info windows. We recently introduced spatial queries, which means you can do a bunch of things. I'll show you that. But basically, you can do things like, say, give me all the rows in this table that are in this bounding box. Giving me all the rows that are within 5 kilometers of this central point. Give me the nearest 25 points to this one point. And you can integrate it with the Maps API. 1 or 2, maybe 3 lines of code, you can put a Fusion Tables layer in version 3 of the Maps API. And then you can interact with it. And if you're not even that hardcore, you can interact directly with Fusion Tables, doing your basic create, update, delete, read. I always forget read, operations. So you can post simple SQL statements that interact with your table. So let's take a look. So Fusion Tables tied to your Gmail, your Google account. This is my traveling demo account, so I actually don't have any. Oh, I do. I've got a few tables in here. This is your standard view here. There's also a whole bunch of tables that people have made public, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But you have access to a bunch of data that other people have made available. So let's take a look at one. I like to start with this one because generally around this time of year, people start wishing they were in places like Brazil. This is a list, latitude, longitude, and name of a bunch of beaches in Brazil. And my colleague who was going to Brazil wanted to see where all of them were, so he found this, this table and uploaded it. Beaches in Brazil. Very simple, easy table, right? Uploaded a spreadsheet, click on visualize, you have a map. Okay, this is where you plot. All right, we did this because people said for a long time, can't I just give you a spreadsheet of things? After we showed them the easy HTML and JavaScript that you could do to put a map on, can't I just give you a spreadsheet and there, we have it. Yeah, there you have it. So then you can do fun things like display this as a heat map. And by heat map, so this actually came up in, I think it was in Moscow, somebody said, well, can't you do wind temperature too? By heat map, I mean intensity map, where the things are most prevalent, right? So here, the most beaches are right around here, where Rio de Janeiro is. And then you can see it, so that's red, these are yellow, green. It doesn't, I don't know if everybody can see it as well, but the red should show up pretty well, right? So anyway, it'll show up better on your monitor. You can then embed that in your web page. You have an iframe. You can get a KML link, blah, blah, blah. You can also do fun things like do queries on it. So get name equals, starts with a PA. Let's see if there's any. I actually don't know. I haven't tried this. No beaches that start with PA. Okay. Beaches that start with A. Anyway, you can you can do simple things with that. This is less impressive than other ones, but that's just your basic like points map. Boom, you have a map, right? Well, what instead if you want to have more than just points? You want to have polygons. You want to have interesting things. This is a table, so in the United States, we elect representatives to the House of Representatives based on districts. So California gets a certain number of districts, Iowa gets a certain number of districts, all the states get a certain number of districts, and then, so we elect them, and they each have boundaries. So this was a KML file that was uploaded. How many of you have used KML or know what it is? Okay, awesome. Geographic data representation, XML markup language. I won't go into details on that. Fit that screen, okay. So you can upload a KML file, and what it will do is it will decompose it. It'll take a few columns, take name and few things. And then it'll put the shape, actually, the shape of each geometry will be in one column. So there's a polygon, right? So again, visualize map, and I have a map. And you think, well, that's not polygons, that's points. But if I double click here, if I get a little bit closer, it'll show the actual polygons. And so what we do here is we take something that you can't do in maps yourself very easily because browsers don't have the power to do all those shapes, right? The polygons on those are pretty complex. And it smooths it and it renders it as an image we refer to as a raster image. that's actually clickable. And you can actually get information out of them. Okay, again, embed this on a web page, do interesting stuff. But what if instead, so say you have that file, right? But what if you have data that's associated with those different districts, and you want to instead render the data, but you don't have the shapefile, but somebody else has published the shapefile? Well, you can combine them. You can merge tables. Right? It's a table because it's a database. It's relational. Right? So here, what we did is we merged that table with a data table that uses the same ID. This is an abbreviation for the state and then the district. Now I'm walking in front of it. That's really smart. Okay, state and district. You guys over there pretend you saw what I did. And so now I've got a merged table. I click on map. I get something similar. I click on this, and because this is the resolution on monitors, you know it's terrible. You see the info window pops up, and it's got all this data in it. Now, you'll notice that the colors are actually different here, and that's because I did something fun, which was I configured the style. So here on the style, you can configure the fill color, and it's based on the median age of the total population. So you can configure this and just put in a gradient here so that different colors represent different values, different buckets of values. Okay, and then the border color as well you can change. You can also play with the marker icon, et cetera, et cetera. And you can configure the info window as well. Okay, so all of this then remains when you do something like, okay. So this is a Maps API application that you can choose one of 3 different layers here. And you can actually create a query from within. So I'm going to show you how this works, and then I'm going to actually show you some code, because you're developers and you like code, right? I've just been showing things. Okay, so you see I've got this little slider, and I move it here. Now the median age of the population, I happen to know that I have to get over like 37 to make it be meaningful. But you see there, what I did was, up in the box at the top, I'm not going to get in front of the projector again, but hey, I'm not going to leave you guys out. Up in that box up there, I have a select, just as if you were in an SQL database. Select shape, so the location is the shape column, from 290985, which is the ID of the table. And by the way, the table ID is right there. It wasn't this particular one. And then where median age of the total population, that's one column, is greater than 37. Now if I jump that up to 47, I can see in Prague, even people here know that Florida is known for old people. Yeah, in fact, if you go down to 44, it's still Florida. Okay, so let's take a look at the source here. So a lot of this is actually just styling for the slider. So I'm just going to slide through this. I used Closure, which is a free library from Google to do the slider, by the way. So here's styles for the map. There's an option to go into a styled map. So where are we here? Okay, so here we have a table ID. So there's a basic table ID. And then this creates a table layer. Can everybody see that? Here, let me make that bigger here. Okay, so what this does is it creates a new Fusion table layer, and it assigns it a table ID. And then, blah, 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 down here. Where am I? Okay, so here you set the query. And the basic query is select shape from table ID, because all these tables have, or the default one has shape as the column. So set the query. And here again, you put in the table ID. So the table ID actually comes twice, and you got to make sure that they match up, or you're going to wonder why you're getting the wrong layer on your map. And then you set the layer equal to the map. And then what I did here is I just created a here. So this change query, what it does is it sets the table, it changes the table ID, make sure the table ID is right, and what am I doing? Change preset. Anyway, what I did with some of this code, before I get too deep into it, is basically just when you slide it, it changes the value of the pre-selected query. And then it changes the value of the text box to display it. And then just sets the new query. And so it's really easy to change this query and behave interactively with it. By the way, a lesson that I learned was when you're using the closure slider, you have to make sure not to change it whenever the slider changes value, because then you're bombarding Fusion tables, saying, give me a new layer, give me a new layer, give me a new layer as you're sliding along. So you want to do it when it stops or at a reasonable interval. Okay. So I want to take a look at a different layer here. And this is a little bit more somber layer, not congressional district demographics, but Iraq WikiLeaks. Now, how many of you know what WikiLeaks is? Yeah, okay. So a little while ago, the Guardian displayed, using Fusion tables, displayed a table that showed deaths in Iraq. And this table, they made it public so that they could display it on a map. We then took this and actually changed the style so that the color represents the number of deaths in any one instant. So here you can click on an individual one and get the number of people killed. And I don't display this because I want to make some big deal out of WikiLeaks, but I think it's a powerful visualization tool, and this particular data set shows some of that power. And so if unfortunately, just the resolution on this monitor is making this kind of strange, but so I have to go up here to change that, and then you can see it changes the number of markers that are on there. So I'm going to drop that down to 0 again, and again show enable heat map. And as you might expect, if you've followed the war in Iraq, the heat map shows the concentration of deaths in Tikrit, Baghdad, and around the Mosul area. But what I want to do is take a look at this data set a little bit more. Let's just go back to Fusion Tables itself and click on Visualize, because this Fusion Tables is not just about maps. There's a lot of other ways to do visualizations in there. So there's a line graph here. And I'm going to just say category of types and total number of people killed, total deaths. And you can see there, it produces an interesting a bar graph. But there's also this motion chart here. And again, I'm going to do date and time versus, I'm going to do total deaths versus date and time. And this one sometimes takes a moment to load. All right, that one's not working. Demo gods are against me. So here's a timeline version. Let's do a refresh on this page here. Okay. All right, so that's not very impressive. All right, so I'm not going to keep going on those, but basically just to point out that you have a lot of different options for the kinds of graphs that you'll see here. All right, so I wanted to show you a few other examples here. So these are some of the spatial queries. These are using just some sample data sets here. This is to show you that you can do an interesting, give me everything within this polygon. Give me everything within this bounding box. And the idea here is you say to Fusion Tables that the query is actually a select, and I'll show you what the query looks like. But you're looking at intersections. So here, it's a fictional data set. Select delivery zone from table ID, where ST intersects delivery zone, and then you give it a rectangle. So this is familiar-ish syntax to people who are familiar with the OGC SQL syntax. It's inspired by that. I won't say it follows it exactly, but it is inspired by that. But the idea here is you can basically say, give me every feature that intersects with this rectangle. And it doesn't just give you points in there, but you can actually detect rectangles. So you see some of these rectangles, or some of these polygons rather, only part of them are in there. So that's, I think, a pretty powerful feature. And then this is a nearest neighbor example. So this is just give me the closest n number of features to this particular spot. And of course, you can also do a radius. Give me the features that fall within a radius, a specific radius. So here I could expand the radius to 20,000, and it gives me more features. So 20,000 meters or 20 kilometers. Okay. So I just want to just take a quick look at this. Don't worry about what this actual table is. You see I'm going to click on share. I just wanted to show you the different sharing options that are available here. You can invite people to participate in a particular table as viewers, collaborators, or owners, right? And you can also make the table itself generally private, which is only those people that you've particularly invited can interact with it. You can make it unlisted, which means that anybody can see it as long as they have the URL. But it's not listed in the public directory, or you can make it public. And you can do this with merge tables. Now, merge tables allows you to do interesting things of just selecting certain columns, which means you can take a private table, merge it with a public table, and make only a column or two public. So then let's see. So then you're giving only limited access to a particular view of your data. And you can even limit it further by putting in a query that says only give me 1,000 rows or something like that, or only give me rows that are related to a particular company or some other condition on the column. Okay, so I want to, yes.
I made a table, for example,
Yes.
a table and merged it with someone's public table.
Yeah.
And he deleted his table. So I lost my data.
So you'll lose the merged table. You'll lose the view, but you won't lose your own data. It's a good question. Nobody's asked that before. Here, come and get here.
And is there an option to, I don't know, copy his table?
So the question is there's an option to copy somebody else's public table. So that's an interesting point. There's two options. One is he can make it exportable or not exportable, right? So if it's exportable, then you can copy the data and just load it into your own. If it's not exportable, you can't. I mean, you could take a screenshot and copy and paste and whatever, but that's the hard way. So yeah, that's a good question. Okay, so let me see. These are all the things that. All right, so are there any questions about fusion tables? Yes. Right. So the question is there an API to interact with fusion tables directly? Yes, there is. It's a Google product, so there's always an API. And it's actually, we learned the lesson, it's not a Google Data API. It's not a bunch of XML shoved in, Atom shoved up there. It's simple get and post statements of SQL statements. We use OAuth for authentication, and that's it. There's a client library called Placemat. Yes? Can you use private table in Google Maps API? No. It has to be public. However, you could create a public view that's a limited view of yours that only exposes a certain amount of data. Oh, good question. That's 10 points.
It's okay.
And Jarda, give him yes, what's your question? Can you export the data from the table in JSON? I think we've exposed JSON now, yeah. Okay, any more questions? I can take one more on fusion tables. Oh. I can, at the end, we can, yes. So the question is, can you make a lower res version of the table? You can create a calculated column that you would expose. But yeah, you can't. It's really mostly what you're doing is you're basing it on a query and a limited number of columns. So you can do row and column limitations. Okay, I'm going to move on to styled maps so that Jarda actually has time to do his talk. But I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. The idea behind styled maps is you can change the look and feel of a map. Right? We all know what a Google map looks like, right? Because they're on 350,000 websites. But you can now change the color scheme. If you make it match your own website, you can do fun things like change size, color, and visibility of certain objects on the page. You can basically allows you to clean up the interface, match the color schemes, and just be more artistic. So for this, I just have a bunch of demos which I think show it better than talking about it. This is actually the Static Maps API. So this is supported in JavaScript, Flash, and Static Maps API. So you see here a base image. And
here, and we are at Vysochanska, Praha. By the way, this box is so-called one Google, is the bar, Google bar, which you can enable by one JavaScript line in your API window. Just enable Google bar, and you have the search box, which works without having to do anything. So I can say here that I would like all the roads turn in green or blue. And you can zoom, and you can see that it's instant. So it's not generated. It's really the magic is that Google invested heavily into the servers and do it on the fly. So it's really generated. It's not anymore generated as a map tiles with tons of the pyramid of the PNG files. It's served on the fly. So that's why you can have, even on one page, you can have 5 different maps, and it's set by the Particle Maps API window. So you can have on one page, you can have 6 tiles combined together. So it's not like limited. So let's go to something which is really popular here, and where we have it. You have the window. So let's speak a little bit about the Street View. So and I'll just switch to full screen. Oh, Street View is here. So just shortly, you know the situation. Street View is quite popular in Czech Republic on both sides, from users and developers, and also from our Úřad pro ochranu osobních údajů, our DPA. So you probably heard the stories and everything, and true is that they had some concerns, and we are discussing with them how those concerns can be addressed. But until it will be solved, we cannot launch any imagery which we already collected. So unfortunately, we have several cities ready, processed, but we cannot launch them until it will be solved. But it doesn't make that you should not look at the Street View API, because it's available in small south part of Brno, full Prague, Český Krumlov, and a few other locations. So in the meantime, you can try and practice on those few cities. And when it will be completely launched, then you will have many more places to play with. So how you can use the Street View? It's really, really simple. This is all the code which is necessary from the JavaScript perspective. So in the web page, you need one div element in which you will recreate the Street View Panorama. And all the code which you need is starting with the coordinate, so lat long equal new Google Maps lat long, then create the panorama options, where you are providing the position of the point of view. It means where you would like to look in that 360 degrees panorama, and how much you would like to zoom. And I will explain those in a moment. And then you will just create new panorama, Street View Panorama, provide the particular element of the div. So there is that get element by ID. This should be the ID of that particular div element, and panorama options. And voila, you will get such Street View Panorama. I will just show you first a few slides, and I'll show the practical demonstration. So Street View, 2 things which are really good to have in mind when you are working with. Once you will say, you will find out, okay, the location of the hotel is here, I would like the Street View nearest. Yeah?
Is there a way I can get info if the Street View is available?
Yeah, it will tell you. It will tell you. The service will return you if it's available or not for the particular location. And you can also show the overlay on your map with the street, similar to what is on the maps, Google. When you drag the pegman and you have that blue overlay, you can get the same on your API. So first, if you will open the panorama, it will by default look straight forward to the north. So if you will not modify it anyhow, and you will say, get me the Street View from the particular location, you will get for the nearby panorama, which can be sometimes tricky on the corner cases. When you have the building, it can be that the nearest is on the opposite street. So because you are asking for the nearest one for the particular latitude and longitude. And it will be looking straight forward to the north. So that's why you have to modify, or you can modify, heading and pitch. It means where you would like to look, and it's really like a compass direction. So 0 is north, 180 is south. And what is the pitch? How much above you would like to look, while horizontal it means 0. The other part, and I will show you then all the demos, is what if you would like to look on the particular restaurant? So imagine that you know the exactly lat long of the entry to the building. You know that here are the doors, and you would like to look at them. Can you calculate it? And you can. So you need just 2 steps to do so, and a little bit of high school mathematics. So first, you will use the Streetview service to find the nearest panorama. So you know, I have that lat long of the door of the particular shop. Streetview service will return you the nearest panorama, and then you have to do the mathematical part of it and calculate the right heading, because you will get, this is your viewpoint where you would like to look at, and this is the nearest panorama, because panoramas are distributed roughly every 10 meters, roughly on the street, every 10 meters on the way. So it can be nearest, it will be the nearest one. And from that, you have to calculate that particle angle. And it's arc10 to from longitude to longitude. I will show you the code. So this is how you will do it. So you will create new Streetview service, and you will get panorama by location. And you will get the data and the status. And if the status will be that the Streetview panorama is not available, you can react to it and show some other picture. We will discuss that later too. And the second step is that you can process the data, and you can, because calculation is expected to come in the degrees, so you will calculate just the angle and set the particle point of view with the particle heading, pitch, and zoom. But let's take a look at the examples themselves. So, window, okay, yeah, so here, Streetview. So this is that code which I mentioned, and the coordinate is on the street next to the hotel. So if I will update, I will get the Streetview Pano object. What is good to mention, and what Mano told me and I didn't know about it, by default, it will not be Flash-based anymore. And if you have really top-of-the-art browser from the trunk, from the nightly build, it will serve first, if WebGL is available, it will be using WebGL to render the panorama. If it's not available, it will use the HTML5. And if the HTML5 is not available, it will fall back to Flash. No? HTML4? No Flash. No Flash at all? Wow, super. So even no Flash at all. So take a look. This was that north location. You can check it on the map. North is there. And this is the hotel. You can do even more things. If I will change, for example, that pitch or heading to something different, like whatever, 180, and update it, I will be just looking to the south. So nothing complicated. You can program it, you can move it and do whatever you want. You can also put the markers into the Streetview. So if you would like to mark some of the locations inside the Streetview, you can create the markers. And take a look. It's a standard marker, which you will add to the map. And I will just add them there. And surprisingly, they will be visible inside the Streetview. So I got 3 of them. Here are 2, and the last one is here. But you can modify them, you can put them, and you can click on those. So you can really play quite a nice peek and boo or game and hide some marker somewhere in the city, and who will find it will win the prize. But not do it to developers, because they will look into the source code and find it. There is also that availability of how to calculate that angle, which I was showing you. So the real example of that is, this is from South Africa. So it's true, we have the street view with the elephant, because we collected the street view in the national parks in South Africa. So you can find several street view panoramas with the wild elephants walking over. And here is one of the stadiums where the World Cup was played. So imagine that we have inside the stadium the collection. So we had the trike which was going inside to collect the stadium for the World Cup. So you can click, for example, I would like to look at this entry. So what it will do is that it will compute the nearest, find the spot, which is the nearest, and set the view. I can say, okay, I would like to look here, and I would like to look, I don't know, here, and you will always get it was not on my side. No, computer is running properly still. It seems like something with the projector. Yeah. Oh, okay. It was just the hardware part. Sorry. Is it there? Yeah. And it will even tell you the location name, so you can play with it. But what is also nice is that you can use that viewer which is created for showing not only markers, but you can completely replace the imagery and put there your own image. Mano was having some nice time here and created the picture. So what I can do is, if you loaded it properly there, did you put it into the same file folder? It worked before. So if it will be working, GDD, CZ, JPEG. Yeah, there is an image taken outside, and normally this image should appear in our API example, but don't know what's happening. It's there. So you can see that you can set up. I will show you the code. So code is also quite simple. You will create the custom panorama, get custom panorama tile URL, which is the special function which for particle pano, zoom, and tile will return the URL to the imagery which you need. And we have simple version of that function, always return the same file. Yeah. And then you will create your custom panorama and provide your imagery and the link to that function which returns the tile URL. You can create your copyright, put the copyright of the message. So you can see here that imagery is by Mano Marks. How we created, or how Mano created it, is using panomonkey.com, which is the service from Jeffrey Martin. He's here from 360 Cities, which is like an online system where you will just upload all the images which you collected, and it will return you back the panorama. You don't have to stitch it by yourself. You can use it as a service, which is quite cool. So that's regarding the Street View.
How does it recognize where in the picture should it look?
Where is the north, south, and other part? That's a good question. I think that it's not recognized. Yeah, but you can probably override it. Maybe Mano.
Yeah, it's just it's making an assumption based on your image. The center of the image is north, so
Yeah,
you can create an image pyramid so you can control that a little bit more. This is a simple example, but you can do a much deeper example, which does very high resolution by tiling it.
And if I want also ceiling and floor, I just make the one photo higher.
You just there's instructions in the documentation. It's pretty complete on how to do the tiling so that it arranges it by degrees.
Yeah. So that's regarding how you can use the Street View. And if I will return back to our presentation, just a moment. So here are a few resources. for Google Maps API documentation, Fusion tables, tables API, style maps, and other stuff. And definitely recommend follow Mano and Google Maps API on Twitter or Google Fusion table on Twitter or me. or me. So, and we can answer the question. So now is the time for your questions. Thanks a lot for your time, and you are willing. Don't forget, we are providing the QR codes for any questions asked.